Welcome to Bedtime Lessons. I am Arthur Vance, and tonight, as the world outside quiets, we begin a gentle exploration into something profoundly human, our need for stories. If you've ever found yourself lost in a book, caught up in a film, or simply listening intently to someone recount their day, you felt the quiet power of a story, you might be wondering why our minds are so drawn to narratives. What is it about a sequence of events, strung together with a beginning, a middle, and an end, that captivates us so thoroughly? It's a question that has intrigued thinkers for millennia, and one that modern science is only just beginning to truly unravel. Think of it this way: our entire human experience is, in a sense, a story. From the earliest whispers around a flickering fire recounting the day's hunt or the wisdom of ancestors, to the sprawling sagas of our digital age, stories have always been at the very core of what it means to be human. They are not merely entertainment, not just a way to pass the time. Their presence in every culture, every era, suggests a far deeper, more fundamental purpose. What this means is, stories serve as a sort of mental infrastructure. They are the frameworks upon which we build our understanding of the world, and indeed of ourselves. They help us make sense of the chaotic flow of events around us, transforming disparate facts into coherent meaning. Imagine if every day your mind was bombarded with raw, unconnected data, a constant stream of fragmented observations. It would be overwhelming, wouldn't it? Stories provide the pattern, the thread that weaves these fragments into a meaningful tapestry. And here's what's truly fascinating. The human brain seems to be wired specifically for this. When we engage with a story, our brains don't just passively receive information. Oh no, they ignite. Areas light up that are involved in experiencing the very events being described. Your sensory cortex might stir at the mention of a crisp autumn breeze. Your emotional centers resonate with a character's joy or sorrow. It's as if for a brief moment you are experiencing the story yourself, a mental simulation of reality. And this simulation, this living through the story, is not just a pleasant diversion. It's a profound mechanism for learning, for empathy, and for connection. It allows us to step into another's shoes, to understand perspectives far removed from our own, and to grasp complex ideas not just intellectually but emotionally. We are not just told a story, we are changed by it. Perhaps that is why stories still matter so very much. Why stories still matter. Indeed, in my study, we often consider the quiet echoes of ages past, and what is more enduring, more fundamental to connecting those echoes than stories themselves. You see, human beings, we are creatures of narrative. From the earliest campfires painting shadows on cave walls to the complex digital ecosystems of today, our minds are wired to tell and to receive stories. You might be wondering, why is this so? What deep-seated need does a story fulfill within us? Well, here's what's interesting. Our brains don't just process facts and figures in a cold, analytical way. When we encounter a compelling story, a fascinating symphony of neural activity begins. It's as if different parts of our mind, usually separate, begin to sing in unison. Think of it this way: when you read about a character smelling a freshly baked pie, your olfactory cortex, the part of your brain that processes smells, can actually light up. Or if a narrator describes the texture of rough fabric, your sensory cortex might activate. It's as if your brain is experiencing these things alongside the character. A quiet inner rehearsal of life itself. This isn't merely imagination, it's a form of mental simulation. What this means is, stories allow us to live through experiences without physically encountering them. Imagine, if you will, the profound evolutionary advantage this offers. We can learn about dangers, about social dynamics, about triumph and tragedy, all from the safe remove of a narrative. It's a way of acquiring wisdom, of understanding cause and effect, and of preparing for the myriad complexities of life without ever truly being in harm's way. Now here's where it becomes even more intriguing. This neural dance extends beyond just sensory details. Studies have shown that when a narrator tells a story, the brain activity of the listener can actually synchronize with the speaker's brain activity. It's almost as if our minds are humming along at the same frequency. This phenomenon, sometimes called neural coupling, suggests a profound connection, a shared understanding that transcends mere words. The boundaries between speaker and listener begin to softly blur. What an extraordinary feat, wouldn't you say? This deep, empathetic connection is so much more than simple information transfer. It's about feeling, about shared emotion, and about building a bridge between one consciousness and another. It's why a truly powerful story can linger with you long after it has ended, shaping your thoughts, perhaps even subtly altering your perspective. Echoes from our past. Now, as we deepen our understanding of this fascinating interplay, it becomes clear that the stories we tell, the narratives we embrace, are far more than mere entertainment. Indeed, they actively shape our very consciousness, how we see ourselves, how we perceive the world, and even how we relate to one another. Imagine, if you will, the delicate tapestry of your own life. Every memory, every experience, every interaction you've had is woven into a personal narrative. It's similar to the way a skilled cartographer meticulously charts a landscape, giving meaning and sequence to disparate landmarks. This internal storyteller, if you like, is constantly at work, organizing the chaotic flux of daily events into a coherent, flowing tale that defines who you are and where you belong. Consider for a moment how a conversation with a loved one, a new piece of information you encounter, or even the quiet contemplation of a sunset can subtly alter the threads of that tapestry, enriching its texture, perhaps even shifting its hue. This isn't merely a psychological construct, it has profound implications for our collective existence. Just as individuals craft their personal sagas, so too do societies construct grand narratives. These are the myths, the epics, the folklore, and the shared histories that bind communities together, transmitting values and wisdom across generations. Think of the ancient tales whispered around a flickering fire. These were not just diversions, they were the very bedrock of cultural identity. They taught about courage, about caution, about the rhythms of nature, and the intricate dance of human relationships. These stories, whether they spoke of creation or of heroes, were practical blueprints for navigating the world. Now, here's what's truly interesting. These societal narratives are not static relics of a bygone era. No, they are dynamic, living entities that continuously evolve through reinterpretation and retelling. In our modern age, with its rapid currents of change, we see these older stories re-emerge in new forms, perhaps in films, or in literature, or even in the quiet corners of our digital spaces. And in this retelling, they can adapt, offering fresh insights to contemporary challenges. It's as if the ancient stream of human experience finds new courses to flow through, nourishing different soils, but always carrying the same essential waters of wisdom. What this means is that stories are not just a reflection of our culture, they are a fundamental force in its creation. They mold our understanding, they cement our shared heritage, and they provide a lens through which we interpret the present and imagine the future. They are, in essence, the very language of our human journey, continually shaping the landscapes of both our individual souls and our collective spirits. The brain loves story. Indeed, these echoes from our past carry with them a profound significance, shaping our inner worlds in ways we often don't consciously perceive. You see, the very act of engaging with a narrative, whether it's a whispered family anecdote, an ancient myth, or a contemporary film, creates a fascinating resonance within us. It's as if our minds are specifically attuned to the rhythm and structure of a story. What's particularly interesting is how these narratives don't just appeal to our intellect. They touch something far deeper, reaching into the emotional core of our being. Think of it this way: when you listen to a story, your brain doesn't merely process words, it recreates the experience. Descriptions of a scent, a distant sound, or the texture of a worn-out garment can activate your sensory cortex, making you feel as though you are truly there, experiencing it firsthand. It's a marvelous trick of the mind, allowing us to live countless lives and explore endless possibilities. All from the quiet comfort of our introspection. This emotional recreation is partly thanks to a particular part of your brain, the amygdala, which is deeply involved in processing emotions. When a story presents emotional content, this area lights up, allowing you to not just understand, but truly feel the emotional highs and lows of the narrative. It builds a bridge, you might say, between your own emotional landscape and the world being spun before you. And here's where the magic truly unfolds: our mirror neurons. These fascinating cells, which allow us to empathize with others, spring to life. They help us reflect the feelings, actions, and even the subtle pains of the characters within a story. It's a foundational mechanism for building deep feelings of empathy and connection. Imagine witnessing a character's struggle and feeling a pang of their sorrow or a surge of their triumph as if it were your own. This isn't merely sympathy, it's a profound, almost biological resonance. Through stories, we learn to understand each other, to connect across divides, and to recognize the universal threads that bind us all together. Emotions shaped by tales. Now, the way our minds gravitate towards narrative is something quite profound. Think of it this way: stories help us cut through the noise, the sheer volume of information that assails us every day. In our modern age, where attention is a most valuable commodity, a clear narrative becomes not just useful but essential. You see, when someone shares a story, a fascinating thing happens in our brains, a phenomenon neuroscientists call neural coupling. It's almost as if the neurons in the listener's mind begin to mirror those of the storyteller. Imagine, if you will, two brains vibrating in harmony, sharing a common understanding, a shared context. This isn't just about language processing. It involves many areas of the brain, reaching into our motor cortex, our sensory centers, and our frontal lobes. What's particularly interesting is how our anticipation of a story's resolution can stimulate the release of dopamine, that delightful chemical reward in our brains. This reinforces the entire process, making the story more engaging, more memorable. Perhaps this is why emotionally charged events or narratives, those with a strong emotional resonance, tend to be etched into our memories with such remarkable clarity. Consider how vividly we might recall the details of a significant personal event even many years later, or the profound impact of a well-constructed speech or presentation long after its delivery. While the precise mechanisms of this brain activation are still a subject of ongoing study and gentle debate among neurobiologists, the experience itself speaks volumes, engaging stories rich with carefully chosen details imbued with genuine emotion and offering avenues for us to connect, to identify with their characters or circumstances, resonate deeply within us. They speak to something ancient, fundamental within the human experience. This isn't merely a personal musing, it extends into the realm of our working lives. Some insightful minds in the world of business consider storytelling to be one of the most consistently underestimated skills. Indeed, entrepreneurs who struggle to craft and convey compelling narratives often find their path to success rather steeper, because stories at their heart are about making connections. They are about illuminating the why, not just the what. Building our shared world. Now, as we deepen our understanding of these whispers from the past, we arrive at a particularly fascinating insight: the very structure of these narratives themselves. You see, a good story, a truly resonant one, isn't merely a collection of events. It follows certain patterns, certain rhythms that seem to speak to something ancient within us. Think of it as a recognizable blueprint for meaning. From the earliest fables passed around a crackling fire to the grand epics etched into the scrolls of time, there's always a beginning. A sense of setting the stage, then comes the inevitable tumult, the challenges that disrupt the calm, and finally a resolution, a renewed sense of order or understanding. This isn't just about an entertaining flow, it's about a journey of transformation. Every meaningful narrative, in essence, charts a course from separation to a new kind of unity, with the heart of that journey residing in the struggles and confusions faced along the way. What's particularly poignant about this is how these patterns reflect our own lives. We too experience beginnings, periods of disarray, and then, hopefully, a new integration of understanding. Our minds, it seems, are predisposed to seek out these narrative arcs, perhaps because they offer a way to process our own experiences, to find meaning in the chaos of existence. Stories, in a sense, provide us with a kind of mental scaffolding upon which we can build our understanding of the world, and indeed of ourselves. Indeed, the stories that truly endure often contain deep wells of metaphorical truth, truths conveyed in the simplest, most accessible language. They allow us to consider our own lives from a gentle distance, providing a safe space to assimilate our experiences. This quiet reflection can itself be a powerful balm, especially for those navigating the more turbulent passages of life. Perhaps, and this is a thought worth holding, it is through these ancient narrative structures that we find both solace and strength, learning that confusion is but a prelude to a new quiet dawn. Stories as gentle guides. Indeed, human minds are fascinating. They continuously strive to make sense of the vast, intricate tapestry of our existence. And here is where a crucial concept comes into play: the interplay between different parts of our brain when we engage with a story. You see, when we listen or read a narrative, it's not just the language centers of our brain that light up. Oh no, it's far more profound than that. Imagine reading a vivid description of a summer meadow, the scent of wildflowers, the buzz of bees, the warmth of the sun on your skin. What's interesting is that the areas of your brain responsible for processing actual smells, sounds, and sensations become active. It's as though your mind is experiencing these things firsthand, even though you are merely absorbing words. This phenomenon, where senses described in a story activate the sensory cortex, helps us not just understand but truly feel the narrative. And then there's the emotional resonance. Stories, especially those brimming with emotional depth, engage the amygdala, that ancient part of our brain responsible for processing emotions. This allows us to not only comprehend the characters' joys or sorrows, but to genuinely feel them alongside them. It's this deep emotional connection that makes a story so much more than just a sequence of events. It transforms it into an experience. Perhaps most fascinating is what neuroscientists call neural coupling or mirroring. When a storyteller shares their narrative, the brain activity of the listener begins to synchronize with the brain activity of the speaker. It's as if the storyteller's brain is guiding the listeners through the landscape of the tale. This mirroring effect helps us to understand the context of the story so deeply, and it's a cornerstone of empathy. We literally begin to walk in the characters' shoes, experiencing their triumphs and tribulations as if they were our own. This capacity to mirror, to truly connect, is what allows us to learn from the experiences of others without having to live them ourselves. This is important because such deeply felt experiences trigger the release of certain neurochemicals. Think of doses of dopamine, for instance, which is associated with reward and pleasure, helping to etch the details of a story into our memory with remarkable clarity. You might be wondering why some stories stay with you for years while others fade away. Well, the emotional weight enhanced by this neurochemical response often determines the longevity of a memory. It's a remarkable mechanism that ensures that the lessons and wisdom contained within stories are not easily forgotten. Our primal need. Now we've walked through how stories guide us gently through life, almost like a kind hand showing the way. But what happens in our minds when we truly immerse ourselves in these narratives? Think of it this way. When you're listening to a compelling tale, whether it's a grand epic or a simple anecdote, your brain isn't just passively receiving information. No, it's far more active. There's a fascinating phenomenon neuroscientists call neural coupling. This is where the brain activity of the person telling the story begins to synchronize with the brain activity of the listener. It's almost as if your mind and my mind are dancing to the same rhythm. What this means is, as I speak and my neurons fire in certain patterns, your own neurons start to mimic those patterns, creating a shared understanding, a shared moment that goes beyond mere words. This isn't limited to just language centers in the brain, you see. When a story describes a particular smell, for instance, your olfactory cortex, the part of your brain that processes smells, might subtly activate. Or if a character is moving, your motor cortex might show a flicker of activity. It's as if you are, in a very real sense, experiencing elements of the story alongside the narrator and the characters within it. This deepens the engagement, allowing the narrative to seep into your understanding, rather than merely sitting on the surface of your thoughts. It brings the story to life within your very being. What's particularly interesting is how these stories can reshape our internal landscapes. They can activate areas of the brain that are often associated with what neuroscientists call the default mode network, regions involved in remembering the past, imagining the future, and understanding others' perspectives. It suggests that narratives are not just external diversions, but rather they tap into the very core of how our brains naturally operate when they're at rest, allowing us to process and understand the world around us, and perhaps even ourselves, more deeply. It's a quiet, profound journey into connection, into empathy, and into the very essence of human experience. Learning through narratives. You see, stories also offer us a profound sense of connection to what it means to be human. When we hear or read a compelling narrative, whether it's a grand epic or a simple anecdote, our brains begin to mimic the experiences of the characters within that story. This fascinating phenomenon, known to neuroscientists as neural coupling, suggests that the patterns of activity in our brains start to synchronize with those of the storyteller. Imagine this: as I speak to you now and you listen, your neurons and mine are, in a very subtle way, aligning to a dance where two separate entities sway to the same rhythm. This mirroring effect creates a shared understanding, a bridge built not of words alone, but of synchronized thought and emotion. It's why we feel a character's joy, or their sorrow, or the tension they feel in a moment of great suspense. Our brains are, in a sense, experiencing it alongside them. What's more, when a story is infused with emotion, when it truly resonates with us, our brains release a chemical called dopamine. This isn't merely a fleeting sensation of pleasure. Dopamine plays a crucial role in memory formation, helping us to retain the details and the lessons embedded within the narrative far more effectively. Think of those captivating moments in a well-told tale, the ones that stay with you for years, perhaps even decades, the feeling of surprise, or revelation, or deep understanding. These emotional peaks create powerful anchors for memory. It's why we might remember the intricate plot of a novel from our youth, yet struggle to recall what we had for breakfast last Tuesday. The story, you see, was imbued with purpose and emotion, while breakfast perhaps was not. This is why stories are so much more than mere entertainment or a simple collection of facts. They are a fundamental pathway to empathy, to understanding, and to the enduring imprinting of wisdom upon the canvas of our minds. Connecting human experience. Indeed, this neural coupling, this mirroring of brain activity, is what allows us to truly inhabit a story. When the storyteller's brain lights up in certain regions, the listener's brain follows. Imagine the subtle dance between a seasoned conductor and their orchestra, each part moving in harmony, creating a shared experience where mere sounds transcend into emotional resonance. It's a profound connection, forging a bridge between minds, allowing an intimacy of understanding that few other forms of communication can achieve. You might be wondering, what of memory in all this? Here's what's interesting. Emotionally charged moments, whether real or within a narrative, trigger a release of dopamine in the brain. This neurochemical, a sort of internal reward system, acts like a highlighter, emphasizing those memories for later recall. Think of a vivid dream or a particularly impactful passage from a cherished book. The details linger with a certain clarity, don't they? This isn't accidental. Our brains are simply more adept at retaining what moves us or intrigues us, seeing it as information worthy of preservation. Now, among neuroscientists, the precise mechanisms are still a topic of exploration, a quiet debate within the hallowed halls of discovery. Yet the lived experience, the palpable impact of a well-told tale, confirms its power. An engaging story, rich with detail, emotion, and moments of relatable struggles, carves its own indelible path through the mind. It's akin to a sculptor meticulously shaping clay. Each detail, each nuance contributes to the final, resonant form. But the tapestry of storytelling isn't confined merely to personal narratives or the quiet moments of reflection. It weaves its way into broader contexts too, into the intricate world of commerce and leadership, for instance. Consider the insights from prominent figures in business, those who understand that in a world awash with data, a compelling narrative can cut through the noise. They recognize that human decisions are often born not just of logic, but of connection, of a story that resonates deep within. The Comfort of Fables. Now the beauty of this isn't just in the ancient wisdom, you see. Modern neuroscience is beginning to illuminate precisely why stories resonate so deeply within us. It's not simply about entertainment, though they certainly can be that. It's about how our very brains are wired to connect with narrative. You might be wondering, how does this work on a biological level? Well, when we hear a compelling story, our brains don't just process the words, they do something quite remarkable. Studies have shown that the areas of the brain responsible for experiencing the events being described become active. Imagine hearing a vivid description of a fragrant rose garden, or the sound of rustling leaves on a quiet autumn afternoon. Your sensory cortex, the part of your brain that processes smells and sounds, can become engaged as if you were truly there. It's a simulation, a gentle mental journey that your mind undertakes. What's more, stories have a profound impact on our emotions. An emotional narrative can engage the amygdala, the brain's center for processing feelings. This means that we don't just understand the character's joys or sorrows, we actually feel a resonance of those emotions ourselves. It's a powerful echo within our own being, and here's where the magic truly begins. This emotional engagement, this shared feeling, often activates what are known as mirror neurons. These are the very neurons thought to be responsible for empathy, allowing us to mirror the feelings or actions of another, fostering a deep sense of connection. This neural coupling, as some researchers call it, is a fascinating phenomenon. When a storyteller speaks, the neural patterns in the listener's brain can actually begin to synchronize with those of the speaker. It's as if a bridge is being built between minds, allowing for a shared understanding of context and even anticipating what might come next. The anticipation itself can even stimulate the release of dopamine, a chemical reward for our brains, making the story even more memorable. Indeed, stories are not merely passive diversions. They are active experiences that reshape our neural pathways ever so slightly, building bridges of understanding and empathy within the vast, intricate landscape of our minds. It's a testament to the enduring power of narrative, a quiet whisper that connects us all. Whispers of our ancestors. Perhaps you found yourself drawn into a story so completely, so utterly, that for a time the world around you simply melted away. This deep immersion, this feeling of being transported, is not merely a trick of the mind. It is a profound neurobiological process. The brain, you see, reacts to stories in ways quite distinct from how it processes raw data or simple facts. When we hear descriptions of a scent, a particular sound, or the texture of something worn or old, our sensory cortex becomes active. It's as though we are not merely hearing the words, but experiencing those sensations ourselves in that very moment. And when a story evokes feelings of joy or sorrow, or perhaps a sudden twist of tension, the amygdala, the brain's emotional processing center, ignites. We don't just understand the character's emotions, we feel them too. It is this emotional resonance that allows us to not only comprehend a narrative, but to truly connect with its highs and lows. Even more remarkable is the concept of neural coupling. When a storyteller weaves their tale, the neurons in the listener's brain begin to mirror the activity of the narrators. It's a synchronization, a dance of minds, if you will, that allows for a shared understanding of context. This mirroring, this subtle echo of brain activity, is deeply linked to empathy. Our mirror neurons, those fascinating little mechanisms, help us to reflect another person's feelings, their actions, their very being. Whether it's the thrill of a hero's triumph or the quiet ache of a character's sorrow, these neurons create a profound sense of connection and understanding between people. And between a story and its audience, the emotional layers that stories provide are not just for engagement, they are crucial for memory. Research suggests that emotionally charged events or narratives cause a release of dopamine, the brain's natural reward chemical. This surge of dopamine helps to solidify memories, making the details of a well-told story more vivid, more enduring. Think of how you might recall the precise circumstances of a significant personal event, even many years later. Stories provide a rich tapestry of context and emotion, making information easier for our minds to store and retrieve. They transform mere facts into something memorable, something that settles deep within us. Crafting personal truths. Indeed, as we journey through the quiet corridors of our vast human archive, we begin to observe a profound truth. Stories are not merely decorations upon the tapestry of life, they are the very threads that hold it together. Think of it this way: our minds are constantly seeking patterns, connections, and meaning in the world around us, and stories, you see, offer us precisely that. They help us to organize the often chaotic stream of existence into something coherent, something we can grasp and understand. From the earliest whispers around a flickering fire to the most intricate digital narratives of today, stories have always been our primary tool for making sense of things. They are, in a very real sense, technologies of understanding designed to capture our attention and guide our minds. You might be wondering, how does this ancient art form, so seemingly simple, exert such a powerful influence over us even now? Well, the science of storytelling, a burgeoning field, offers some fascinating insights. It suggests that when we listen to a story, our brains don't merely process words as isolated units. Oh no, our neural activity begins to synchronize with that of the storyteller. It's a phenomenon sometimes called neural coupling, where the minds of the teller and the listener align, almost as if they are dancing together. This shared neural dance allows for a unique form of understanding and connection. Imagine this: as I speak of a character walking through a forest, the sensory areas of your brain that process sights, sounds, and even the feeling of damp earth become subtly active. It's as if you are experiencing a mental simulation of the events within the narrative. What's truly remarkable is how a story, even a fictional one, can transport us. We don't just hear about an emotion, we often feel a resonance of it within ourselves. This is because stories engage not just our intellect, but also our emotions, activating regions of the brain responsible for feelings and empathy. It brings those elements of the narrative into our own lived experience, without us having to actually endure them. This is important, you see, because it allows us to safely explore complex scenarios, moral dilemmas, and the vast spectrum of human experience, all from the comfortable distance of a listener. Stories are, in essence, simulations for life itself. They allow us to learn, anticipate, and even mentally rehearse for the challenges and triumphs that life might bring without ever stepping into real danger. It's a profound advantage passed down through countless generations. This innate capacity for narrative, this deep-seated need to tell and to hear stories, isn't just a quaint human trait. It is perhaps one of the most fundamental aspects of how our minds are built, and how we learn to navigate the intricate world we inhabit. Finding meaning together. Now it's worth considering the profound difference between simply reading facts or scanning data, and truly engaging with a story. Our brains, you see, are wired for narrative. When you listen to a well-told tale, it's not just the language centers of your brain that light up. Oh no. Much more fascinating is that areas responsible for experiencing the described events also become active. If a story speaks of a fragrant rose garden, your sensory cortex stirs as if you were smelling the blossoms yourself. When a character feels profound loss, the amygdala, that ancient part of the brain that processes emotions, resonates with their sorrow. It's as if you become a silent participant, embodying their journey, their feelings. This neural coupling, as some scholars call it, creates a deep, empathetic connection. Your brain mirrors the storyteller's, aligning your understanding and emotions. It's this deep resonance that makes stories so much more than mere information. They become lived experiences, even when they are entirely fictional. This emotional engagement also explains why we remember stories so vividly. Facts, I find, often drift away, like scattered leaves in the wind, but a story imbued with emotion and context often takes root. It settles into our memory with remarkable tenacity because the brain releases a chemical called dopamine during these emotionally charged moments. Think of it as a small internal reward, one that helps solidify the memory, making it far more accessible later on. Perhaps you recall the smallest details of a significant moment in your own life. An engagement, a child's first steps, those memories are often etched deeply, precisely because of the emotional intensity associated with them. Stories, in a way, help us create these internal anchors for information. Narrative and our identity. Our brains, you see, are wired for stories, not just for hearing them, but for creating them. It's part of our very fabric, a fundamental way we sort through the cacophony of the world and make sense of it all. Think of it this way: when we listen to good narrative, our neural activity, the very electrical impulses firing within our minds, begins to mirror that of the storyteller. It's a remarkable phenomenon known as neural coupling, where listener and teller become, in a way, synchronized. This isn't just about understanding words, it's about a shared experience, a journey taken together. You might be wondering, why is this so important? Well, these synchronized brain patterns activate various areas, including those responsible for movement, sensation, and even our frontal lobe, which is deeply involved in comprehension. What this means is that a well-told story doesn't just inform, it allows us to deeply engage, to almost experience the events as if they were our own. And the anticipation of how a story might unfold, it can even stimulate the release of dopamine, that neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward, further strengthening our connection to the narrative. It's why some memories, often tied to emotionally resonant stories, can be recalled with such vivid detail, even years later. Now, the precise mechanisms are still a subject of gentle debate among neurobiologists. But the general understanding remains: compelling stories, rich with detail and emotion, allowing us to identify with the characters or situations. They resonate deeply, they don't just occupy our conscious thought, they tap into something far more primal. And this isn't merely a personal experience, it plays out in our relationships, our communities, and even in the grand tapestry of human history. The coherence of an idea, its structural integrity where each new thought builds upon the last, guiding our attention. That is what stories give us. Consider the power of visualization. Our brains process images at an astonishing speed, far quicker than raw data. A truly effective story, therefore, doesn't just tell you something, it shows you. It paints a mental picture, allowing you to inhabit the scene, to feel the emotions, to truly grasp the essence of what is being conveyed. This visual aspect makes a narrative not only more engaging, but also more deeply embedded in our memory. It's why we don't just remember the plot, we remember the feeling, the atmosphere, the gentle cadence of the tale. Ultimately, the most resonant stories lead us to insight. They guide us from a state of questioning to a moment of understanding, that aha sensation. These narratives are designed to spark reflection, to build connections, and to strengthen the very bonds between us, allowing us to see the world and indeed each other with a clearer, more empathetic eye. This, you see, is the quiet power of how stories shape our very perception of reality. The power of imagination. The human brain, you see, is particularly drawn to stories, far more so than to mere facts or data alone. When we immerse ourselves in a narrative, it's not just our language processing centers that awaken. No, instead, areas of the brain typically associated with experiencing the events ourselves also become remarkably active. Imagine describing the aroma of a pine forest or the soft touch of velvet. These descriptions in a story can actually stir the sensory cortex within the listener's mind, creating a vivid, almost personal sensation. Similarly, the emotional currents of a tale, a moment of triumph perhaps or a quiet sorrow, can engage the amygdala, that ancient part of our brain responsible for processing emotions. This means we don't just intellectually grasp the characters' feelings, we begin to feel them too. It is a profound, shared experience. What's particularly fascinating is the role of our mirror neurons. These tiny, remarkable cells are thought to be intimately involved in empathy. When we hear a story, these neurons fire in a way that, in essence, mirrors the actions, feelings, or even the pain of another person. It's a mirroring that builds a fundamental sense of connection and understanding, a bridge between worlds, if you will. This neural coupling, as some researchers term it, allows the listener's brain activity to synchronize with the narrator's, almost as if they are experiencing the story together. It's a dance of minds, creating a shared context. And then there is memory. Memory. Storytelling dramatically enhances how we remember information. Stories provide the crucial context and emotional layers that an isolated fact often lacks. Think of it: emotionally charged events within a narrative. Those moments of heightened feeling can trigger a release of dopamine in the brain. This neurochemical reward, a sweet indulgence from our own biology, helps to solidify those memories. It's why you might remember the precise details of a significant personal event years later, or why a well-crafted speech can lodge in your mind long after the words have faded. Stories, in their very essence, are memory-making machines. They offer a pathway to retaining and recalling information with a richness that simple data often cannot hope to achieve. Worlds built on words. Perhaps you found yourself scrolling through endless news feeds, or lost in the labyrinth of social media, trying to make sense of a world that often feels fractured and disjointed. It's during these moments that the ancient power of stories, in their truest, most profound sense, reveals itself. You see, the narratives we consume, the myths we embrace, and even the simple tales we whisper to ourselves aren't merely forms of entertainment. They are, in fact, the very threads that weave together our understanding of reality. And perhaps even more importantly, they are essential for holding our societies together. consider the distinction between myths and folklore. Myths, if you will, are the grand narratives, the foundational stories that seek to answer the deepest questions of existence: how the world began, why we are here, and what happens when we leave this earthly stage. Before the age of scientific inquiry, these stories provided a framework for understanding the unknown, often peopled by archetypal figures, heroes, gods, tricksters, whose journeys mirrored our own collective human experience. Folklore, on the other hand, often deals with the more immediate, the more human. These are the tales of people and sometimes of animals, stories that guide us through the challenges of daily life, the crises, and the conflicts that inevitably arise. While myths often touch upon the profound, folklore tends to focus on the practical lessons, the moral compass that helps us navigate our interactions with one another. Both, however, were and remain deeply rooted in our shared human psyche. It's fascinating, isn't it, how many cultures across the globe share strikingly similar narrative patterns. The myth of a great flood, for instance, which you find in ancient texts and in the oral traditions of indigenous peoples spanning continents. This suggests that certain universal human fears, longings, and needs are echoed in the very fabric of our storytelling. Now, in our modern age, with its rapid technological advancements and its deluge of information, it might seem that these old stories have diminished in importance. We see them perhaps relegated to children's books or simplified into cinematic spectacles. Yet even as science offers explanations for phenomena once attributed to divine intervention, the underlying power of these narratives persists. They don't just speak to our minds, they resonate deeply within our hearts, perhaps touching something ancient and profound that reason alone cannot reach. And what of the idea of connection? The feeling of belonging that seems to elude so many in our digitally interconnected, yet often emotionally isolated world. In ancient times, the act of storytelling was itself a communal ritual. Imagine evenings by a crackling fire, elders sharing wisdom through tales passed down through generations. These were not merely stories, they were community-building acts, shaping individual identity while forging a collective sense of purpose. This vital art of communal storytelling, this profound human need to share and connect through narrative, is what helps societies to truly thrive. Passing down wisdom. Indeed, what stories do for us, the deeper layers of meaning they unveil, is profoundly connected to our inner world. Think of it this way: our own lives, every single one of them, are not merely a collection of isolated events, but a continuous unfolding narrative. We carry within us what the psychologist Dan McAdams described as an autobiographical author, an internal storyteller, if you will, constantly crafting the coherent plot of our existence. This isn't a passive process, you see. It's an active, ongoing dialogue between the landscape of our deepest thoughts and feelings and the ever-changing panorama of the world around us. For many, especially those who have journeyed across borders and cultures, this internal authorship becomes even more poignant. Stories of migration, of heritage, of new beginnings in unfamiliar lands are not just recounted. They become the very fabric of personal identity. Those cherished family memories, perhaps the taste of a certain dish, or the gentle sound of a word in a mother tongue, become incredibly powerful symbols, anchoring us to our past even as we sail into the future. It's a fascinating phenomenon, these cultural palimpsests, as some scholars call them, layers of ancestral wisdom gently laid over our present observations, creating a rich, nuanced understanding of identity as a fluid dance, never entirely fixed. What's particularly compelling is how these deep, personal narratives resonate with the grander, collective tales of humanity. Just as our individual stories shape who we are, so too do the myths, the epics, and the folk tales of our cultures define our collective identity. They are not merely dusty relics from a bygone era, you understand. They are living, breathing blueprints for understanding our place in the vast tapestry of human experience, informing our values and providing a shared moral compass. These are the narratives that whisper to us of courage, of sacrifice, of love, and of loss, echoes from ancient times, still vibrant and relevant today. Reflecting on humanity. Pamatesi Jack Moelismi oprzeniseniu madraske, otich delikatnich nishich, kator laxapokolinia. History W. Tim Sensi, Staja Sinai Tilko Dragos Kazami, Lex Ronis Mostami Laximi Nuzzi Taimi, Katorzi Bili PRZ Nami, Iz Taimi, Katorzi Najda. Not W. Dobi Sifroej Kidi Widage Sai, ZPRZ Las Gustapud Mieska Niestanet Noaska, Midia Werzinia Ludo Nadal Tilasai, Cizesto PRZ no Formi, no Shati. PRZs Bajki, Kator Apidaminasim Dizisium, Tianamon Apuesa, Kator Pichlania M. Lodi Amasul, Sonixim Inim, Jack W. Spalxis Nimi Matami. One Nadal PRZenasa Tisame Archetypo Pradi, Tisame Pradon Leksh, Kator Torzisili Ledskaskai Adzarania Dizijo. Nizalsniad Tigo, Siziwai Moemi Omisio Wilkim Padopai, Katori Adenjujimi W Apwesech Tak Adel Glitch Kultur Jack TW Biblii, CZYW Secute Rod Plemian Ardizenich Americano, CZY W Sterzitnich Chinak. W Shedzi Tam Adenjujimi Echa Tich Samich Universalnich Leko I Pragnian. To just 10 Niesmerzini Ocean Ludskiego Doswid Xenia, W Katorum Zanners Emisai, Slutchajek Apoyesa. Zawonnis mieni obikni, not jesli ziminiaja swojamai. Zaidam by zakrakti zywitnosk spalksna, by udizimek nasa w spalnot, musimi pilignoek ti praster apoyesa. Musimi gpr zypaminek, musimi g snukna nowo, I 2 w lasni o to walksimi niestini. W10 spasab honorujmi tich, K torzi bili prz nami, odkruemi glebs aspekti samich cb, attacks bujajimi jednosk w nasaj ludskie rodzini. To just 10 w spalni sen, K tori tirwa ad taisiaklasai przechids exius duast zipakulinia napakulni sheptini przyt lasim si ognisku czytes w sichim emroku nosi. The art of listening. Now perhaps you're wondering why this deep connection between stories and the human mind. Why does our brain light up, as it were, when we encounter a narrative? It seems our brains are uniquely wired for storytelling, almost as if stories are the very language of our understanding. Think of it as a form of neural coupling, a fascinating concept where when we listen to a story, the neurons in our brain activate in patterns similar to those of the storyteller. It's a mirroring, you might say, that creates a shared understanding, a resonance between you and the tale being spun. This isn't just about processing words, you see. It involves many parts of the brain, from the motor cortex, which might faintly act out the actions described, to sensory and frontal regions, all working together to build a vivid shared reality. And here's what's truly interesting. This process isn't just about comprehension, it's about anticipation. The brain thrives on prediction, on wondering what comes next, and that anticipation. That gentle curiosity about the unfolding narrative. It stimulates the release of dopamine. This isn't merely a fleeting sensation. This burst of dopamine helps us remember details with greater accuracy. It binds the emotional weight of the story to its factual elements, ensuring that the experience, the lesson, truly stays with us. This is why a well-told story, full of vivid description and genuine emotion, can be so much more memorable than a mere recital of facts. It reaches beyond the intellect and touches something deeper. Something more enduring. The narrative doesn't just inform, it imprints itself upon the mind, leaving echoes that linger long after the words have faded. Stories for a calm mind. Pamitmiotim ziapidini histora to kas zinaxni wisednis tilko razruka, to narzedzi, kator piarzextalka. Piarzechedzimi zijednigo poziamu swidamaskainaini, stawijek sizola wiswinium by staksai, sizims wised. History patrafio mijek nas egoistixni, sizesto ogernix unspajazini and aswayet, by yukazak tinedzuni ace, nadgulbs zakamarki baisha siziloikim. To jest anaikjakja, to jest transformakja, to jest zimiana, to jest w istosi mit, amidi jakwimi, sa stars niz pissing slowwo. No w lasni ti midi ti sterzitni apoesa, ti legendi one pelnia nizrikal istatna roll w adizamanu spalksenstu pierzi zaisu dizis w nasaj sefroders. Piarzechadzi pakolinia na pakolni, sizesto w formi basni, a chok nakawajasnia wheel zijawisk, ik zinaxini pozistade nizmian. Tu kojest w nish pikni, to z spajaja na z nasimi piarzad kami. Yukazuja universalni leki, ti pradom pregniania, teki jak, na piar zikled, niduzajnina milosk, zazdrosk siziwai pasukuni samigo sibi. Pakazuja nam zi pomimo postupu technologics nigo amedix nigo. W grunciars exi jako ludzi nuil si ziminalismi. History actuuja gleboki rex pirwatni sizeskinacid psychiki laxak na zi tazibiro energia zi tim. Ta gleboka da saswaida, jesli maznat attack ujak. Facti co prada piarzemuyaja du amislu lex history pros panstva piarzemuyaja du circa. Bujaja to pixusi w spalnid plaskizni. W sees asset gdy swayat biwa podzilini. W sees asset zimayan klimatixnich, czy politicsnich nisnasik. T polixenia k torturzemi papazes w spalni apoyesa, stajasai wesnies nizkita kolwik. Piarzer kaja one ronis pixusi zakwatu, punigo ridzaja mysticismu w swisi, k tori stal sai, bike maz zbite zirakjanelazoni, questionuja t ogernix un systemi wirzen. Clarissa Pincola estes Pizzalakides, z history, k tor wichadza z glebokiego sirpiania, mogastanawik nad silnies lekarstvo na piarzessel, teres nies, a not piarzissel dlgliwaska. One patrafia lexic trami, not t midzapakolnio. Du kotrasimi trakek stuk op edania historia, de fundamentalna ludska podazeb pr zinals noskai. Pixusha baisha sizesia chigos week zigo. Apoidni historia buded pixusi tasamoskai, zerono osibisted, jack iw spalnatoid, a tegest, nismirni wazni dla zdrawit structor spalksnich. Tu prawidzi nuzdugleb sigo spajazinia nutu, jack tinarek jikesh taltu jakala nasa swidamosk spalksna ein diwidwil natazsamosk. Boemnas zaisi zidage sai, just neastanum splotum apoyes. Peace in every chapter. Now it's quite fascinating to consider how these stories, these intricate tapestries of meaning, come to be, and how they persist. You see, the narratives that truly resonate often tap into something far older than spoken language itself. Before words, before complex sentences, there was a form of communication rooted in mimesis, in imitation, in gesture, in the very posture of our ancient ancestors. Imagine, if you will, early Homo erectus. Perhaps communicating the thrill of a successful hunt, or the danger of a lurking predator, not through a lexicon of words, but through an evocative dance, a series of nuanced facial expressions, or a simple reenactment. This proto-narrative was limited, of course, sometimes ambiguous, yet it was the primordial seed from which all our elaborate storytelling grew. It was a language of shared experience, a way to convey the what happened then and what might happen next through direct bodily expression. It created a bond, a shared understanding, long before the intricate dance of syllables and grammar allowed for the rich tapestry of verbal tales, indeed, language as we know it. As Daniel Dorr suggests, may have evolved as a sort of social communication technology, a tool specifically designed to share information that lay beyond the immediate, the here and now. It allowed us to instruct the imagination of others, to paint pictures of the past, to delve into private thoughts, or to explore scenarios that existed only in the mind's eye. And in doing so, language not only described the world more fully, but it transformed us. It deepened our social bonds, allowing for a richness of shared understanding that mimetic communication alone simply could not achieve. Drifting off gently. All these narratives, from the grand epics that shaped civilizations to the intimate stories we tell ourselves, serve a profound purpose. They are in essence our navigational charts through the vast, often bewildering ocean of existence. They provide context, meaning, and a sense of continuity across generations. You see, our understanding of the world, and indeed of ourselves, is deeply interwoven with the tales we embrace. They offer a framework for interpreting events, for making sense of the chaos, and for finding our place within the grander scheme of things. Think of them as the very threads that weave the rich tapestry of human experience, without which the whole fabric might well unravel. Yet here's a curiously modern challenge. In our pursuit of scientific accuracy and empirical data, we sometimes overlook the deep human need for these more poetic, more evocative explanations. The scientific narrative, while immensely powerful in its own right, often describes the how, without fully addressing the why, in a way that resonates with the heart, with the older, more primal parts of our being. While science seeks to explain the mechanisms of the universe, our ancient stories, they often seek to explain our asterisk relationship to it. Consider the festive celebrations of the winter solstice, for instance. Long before the precise astronomical calculations, cultures across the globe marked this turning point, the shortest day, the longest night, with rituals and stories of the sun's rebirth. Whether it was the Roman dies natalis solis invicti, or similar myths found in countless other traditions. These weren't merely calendar entries. They were profound narratives that acknowledged our dependence on the sun, our hopes for return, and our inherent connection to the cycles of nature. These stories gave meaning to the cold and dark, transforming fear into hope. Now, a scientific explanation of the Earth's axial tilt and its orbit around the sun gives us the accurate, measurable facts. But it doesn't quite tap into that deep, resonant anticipation of the light's return, does it? It doesn't speak to the soul in quite the same way. It doesn't cultivate that sense of participation in a cosmic drama which these older stories naturally did. They offered a way for people to feel agency, to feel they had a role to play in the turning of the year, in the very breathing of the world. So, while facts and figures illuminate one aspect of truth, stories, myths, and folklore illuminate another. They use the language of poetry, of imagery, of metaphor, creating a tapestry of meaning that transcends mere data. They are not simply false beliefs waiting to be disproven, but rather they are enduring truths expressed in a different tongue. Sweet dreams await. How the beauty of narratives extends to their power for healing, for transformation. Think of it as a quiet internal alchemy, if you will. Therapists for generations have understood this profound connection between our stories and our well-being. Indeed, when life presents us with profound challenges such as trauma or grief, our internal narratives can become fragmented, dislodged. The threads of our personal tale might fray, making it difficult to find coherence, to make sense of the overwhelming. And here, storytelling in its gentlest forms steps in as a balm. It's not about reliving the pain you see, but about creating a safe, quiet space to explore, to reweave those frayed threads into something whole again, perhaps through writing, much like journaling, or even through creative arts like painting or music. These are all forms of telling a story without necessarily using words themselves. What this means is that by giving form to our experiences, we can begin to process them, to bring them from the chaotic depths of unspoken feeling into the light of understanding. It's a process that can reduce the echoes of anxiety, that quietens the insistent thrum of stress, and allows for a gentle, slow healing. It's about finding strength in reauthoring one's own life, one's own understanding of what has been. And in that quiet retelling, in that gentle reimagining, lies a profound sense of empowerment, a reclaiming of agency over one's own journey. The enduring narrative. So we return to where we began, to the very heart of what it means to be human, stories. From the earliest whispers around a flickering fire to the vast, intricate tapestries woven by modern media, narratives have always been our compass, guiding us through the bewildering expanse of existence. Think of it as a fundamental yearning within our very being, a deep-seated need to find pattern, purpose, and connection in the seemingly random flow of events. Our minds, you see, are not passive recipients of information. They are active creators of meaning. When we hear a story, our brains don't merely log facts, they engage in a profound act of simulation. We don't just understand what the character feels, we often feel it ourselves. This is that neural coupling we spoke of earlier, where the speaker's brain activity mirrors the listener's, creating a shared experience, a subtle dance of understanding. Indeed, stories are far more than mere entertainment. They are ancient technologies for making sense of the world, for teaching without preaching, for healing without explicit instruction. They are the vessels through which a society passes on its wisdom, its values, its fears, and its highest aspirations. Imagine a generation growing up without these narratives, how lost they might be, how disconnected from the long, flowing river of human experience. What's particularly fascinating is how stories allow us to explore the vast landscape of human possibility from a safe distance. We can experience triumph and tragedy, love and loss, courage and fear, all without having to endure the actual lived experience. It's a form of mental rehearsal, preparing us in a profound yet subtle way for life's inevitable challenges. They expand our empathy, allowing us to step into the shoes of another, to see the world through different eyes. This is a crucial skill, perhaps the most crucial, for navigating the complex web of human relationships. And in our current age, an age brimming with information, yet often starved for meaning, the power of stories remains undiminished. They cut through the noise, reaching directly into our emotional core. They offer solace, provoke thought, and remind us of our shared humanity. They are a timeless bridge, connecting us to our ancestors, to our neighbors, and to future generations yet to come. They are in essence the very threads that bind the grand tapestry of civilization together. They are why we remember, they are why we learn, and they are perhaps why we dream. So as the quiet of the night settles around you, remember the profound journey we've taken through these narratives. Remember the gentle insights gleaned, the hidden connections illuminated. May these thoughts, these lessons, guide you towards a night of peaceful rest and dreams filled with wonder. Thank you for joining me on this exploration. If these quiet reflections have brought you some measure of calm, I invite you to consider subscribing to the channel and perhaps giving this video a thumbs up. And do explore the other lessons we've shared here at Bedtime Lessons. Until our next quiet moment together, sweet dreams.